So today I just wanted to do an overview of the Motion Picture Production Code, also known as Hays Code, obviously named because of William Hays, who is the man who pretty much created or put these codes into use. The whole purpose of this was to clean up Hollywood's image because 1920s Hollywood was apparently very scandalous and people were obviously a lot more, I guess you could say, reserved to some degree, but these film codes were pretty much applied to major studio releases, and they were in use roughly from 1930 to 1968. One of the things being talked about at the time was the murder of actor-director William Taylor. You also had the rape of silent film actress and model Virginia Rapp. So, these were very high-profile people at the time, so you definitely had a lot of talk and chatter going on. Obviously, people were questioning the morality of Hollywood, and that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Especially in light of the whole Weinstein issue that has been going on. So, definitely history does repeat itself, and you know what? It's important to know your history, kids, because it will come back around, and obviously Hays Code was a strict set of codes that was meant to just kind of clean up Hollywood's act. But if you remember the whole video nasties era, that wasn't much different. So these things definitely do come around in cycles. And in reference to what's going on right now, because obviously there have been some changes, there will continue to be change, I have no doubt that in the near future we may have a different set of film codes or regulations in order to protect young actors, children, whomever. I mean, obviously a whole different set of codes and regulations went into use to protect animals that work in film. So, I wouldn't be surprised if some new changes come about due to all of this. So that's pretty much why I consider Hays Code to be a relevant topic. Even though it's outdated information, history does repeat itself. So these production codes did begin seeing more of a strict enforcement in 1934, but it eventually did, I guess you could say, wane due to the use of television having become a new media, and obviously there were tons of programs and things being put out. It's very difficult to just regulate every single thing being put out, but you also had the competition with foreign film, as well as some directors who just really don't like being told what they can and cannot do, and obviously they pushed boundaries, and good for them, because that's also how you influence positive change. Don't just bend over and take it, basically. But yeah, I would say in the beginning these codes were fairly strict, and they had a crazy screening process to which I don't think even anyone would submit to nowadays. Obviously, when someone was interested in making a film, they had to basically pitch their plot. They had to get it cleared. So apparently this was not a problem at the time, and this was due to the 1915 ruling in Mutual Film Corporation versus Industrial Commission of Ohio. They basically determined that free speech did not apply to motion pictures, which nowadays is unheard of, but that is why they were able to screen things so strictly during this period. Is basically you didn't have a voice. You had to get things okayed, basically get permission to put your film or your idea out there, which, yeah, I mean, that definitely does seem very far-fetched, especially nowadays when people can just independently produce their own films. It sounds like absolute bull, but that was a thing at the time. So along with these Hays codes, you pretty much had this detailed list of things that are okay to do, as well as things to watch out and be careful of. So Some of these are pretty much just common sense, duh. But as far as the don'ts, no profanity, including pretty much taking the Lord's name in vain unless properly being used in a religious ceremony. No nudity, either actual or suggestion of a silhouette. You also had the illegal traffic of drugs, depictions of sexual perversion, white slavery, miscegenation, which, yeah, that definitely really dates how old these codes are. Obviously, that definitely would not fly nowadays. But you also had sex hygiene and venereal disease. Apparently, you couldn't talk about having the clap. Scenes of actual childbirth or in silhouette. Children's sex organs, which makes perfect sense. I don't think even nowadays that one would go. And of course, you also had ridicule of the clergy or willful offense of any nation, race, or creed. So some of these definitely seem just very common sense, very duh, but you also just have some just very left field that are just, what? But, you know, it was a different time period, so these codes are definitely a sign of their time. As far as the regulations for things to be careful of, that list was significantly larger. So I really don't want to run through every single one of those because I'm pretty sure that is going to become boring. So things to be careful of when showing in a film: arson, firearms, theft, robbery, brutality, sympathy for criminals, including not showing makeout scenes with a person who happens to be a criminal, branding of people or animals, the sale of women or a woman's virtue, excessive and lustful kissing. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, definitely very, very reserved, this list, but it's definitely a very long one, definitely a lot longer than the list of things that you can do. So pretty much by the 1960s, the Hays Codes were pretty much no longer in use, and they were apparently replaced by the MPAA film rating system, which is basically the film rating system that we still use today. In my opinion, I think it's interesting just taking a look at these crazy restrictions, and you know, it's not necessarily film that has gone through these types of restrictions. There were even at one point in time a strict set of rules that had to be followed by comic books. I don't know if that's something that you guys would be interested in, but you know, I would definitely love to follow up on that if this type of discussion interests you. But yeah, I mean, like I said, just taking a look at the way history just tends to repeat itself, how things can be very strict from time to time and then things just lessen and we see progress over time. I think it's still very much a relevant topic, but that is pretty much all I have for you guys today, and I will talk to you later.